Ever walk around and just feel kind of small? Not physically, though. Sometimes that too, but like in the grand scheme of things. I was staring at this rock the other day. I thought it was kind of cool looking, and it kind of hit me. Just think it'd be millions of years old. So today we're doing a deep dive into, well, deep time, the mind-blowing history of Earth, and how we even figured any of it out. All right. Our guide for this journey is this beautifully illustrated book called Evolution, the Human Story. And let me tell you, the pictures alone are worth the price of admission. But what's really grabbed me is how it's like a detective story. Scientists are piecing together clues from rocks, fossils, even our own DNA to figure out where we fit into this incredible saga. One of the first things that really blew my mind was this concept of uh, deep time. We're talking millions, even billions of years. It's hard to even wrap your head around, right? But geologists have figured out how to measure it using techniques like radiometric dating. Basically, they analyze certain types of rocks to figure out how old they are. And by studying the layers of rock, they can create this incredible timeline of Earth's history, marking major events like the first appearance of life, the evolution of different species, even the movements of continents. Speaking of which, continental drift. Remember learning about that in school? Turns out those continents weren't always just chilling where they are now. They've been on the move for millions of years, slowly drifting across the globe. It's like a slow motion dance, but with massive consequences. I mean, just imagine what used to be a lush forest could end up a scorching desert. No wonder life on Earth is so diverse. And it's kind of funny. This guy, Alfred Wegener, proposed the idea of continental drift back in the early 1900s, and everyone thought he was nuts, but he was right. I mean, he noticed how the coastlines of continents kind of fit together like puzzle pieces. Kind of obvious when you think about it, right? And he found fossils of the same species on continents now separated by oceans, like this little reptile called Mesosaurus found in both Africa and South America. It's not like it could swim across the Atlantic, right? It's a good thing scientists kept digging literally, because continental drift helps explain so much about how life evolved and why we find certain plants and animals where we do. So you've got continents doing their thing, life evolving in all sorts of crazy ways, and then bam, the dinosaurs bite the dust. I mean, it wasn't quite that dramatic, but around 65 million years ago, a massive extinction event wiped out a huge chunk of life on Earth. Scientists think a giant meteorite slammed into the planet, causing all sorts of chaos. Now, this is obviously bad news for the dinosaurs, but it created an opportunity for another group to take center stage: mammals. I have to admit, I always kind of assumed mammals just immediately took over after the dinosaurs, but the book points out it wasn't that simple. For millions of years, other animals, like giant birds, seemed to be doing pretty well. It took a while for mammals to really diversify and dominate. It just goes to show you evolution isn't always a straight line. It's full of twists and turns. And sometimes a little bit of luck plays a role too. Speaking of luck, ever wonder how something that lived millions of years ago ends up as a fossil? The book does a great job explaining the whole process, and let me tell you, it's way more complicated than I ever imagined. It's like winning the lottery, but for dead things. First, you have to die in the right place somewhere. You'll be quickly buried by sediment, like the bottom of a lake or ocean. Then your soft tissues need to decompose, leaving behind the hard stuff like bones or shells. And then, over millions of years, minerals slowly replace those hard parts, turning them into rock. Voila, you're a fossil. And that's not all. There are trace fossils, too. Not actual remains, but evidence of activity, like footprints or burrows. I actually found one of those once. Thought it was just a cool rock formation, but nope, it was a fossilized worm burrow. Talk about feeling insignificant, right? But fossils aren't just cool to look at, they're packed with information. Scientists use them to reconstruct what ancient creatures looked like, how they moved, what they ate, even how they behaved. It's like piecing together a puzzle, but with bones, teeth, and footprints instead of cardboard. And when it comes to our own ancestors, it gets even more fascinating. The book goes into detail about how scientists reconstruct those ancient hominins. That's the group that includes us and our extinct relatives. And it's mind-bogglingly meticulous. They start with a skull, maybe just a fragment. And using their knowledge of human anatomy and comparisons with modern primates, they can actually build up an entire face. They look at muscle attachment points, predict skin thickness, even use digital modeling to create lifelike reconstructions. You should see the Neanderthal head in the book. It's incredible. Makes you wonder if they had a good sense of humor, like would we have gotten along? And it's not just about looks. Scientists can learn a lot about how our ancestors lived by studying their remains. Like, did you know that you used to estimate brain size by filling skulls with mustard seeds? Seriously. Nowadays they use fancy 3D scanners. But I kind of love the old school method. It's so hands-on. And speaking of brains, one of the big mysteries is figuring out when and how speech developed. Unfortunately, the voice box doesn't fossilize, so we have to rely on other clues. Scientists can look at the hyoid bone, a little bone in the throat, for hints. They also analyze the shape of the skull and the holes where nerves would have passed through. But you know what the book pointed out? Speech might be more about brain development than anatomical changes. And maybe, just maybe, early human language wasn't always spoken. Maybe gestures, facial expressions, all that nonverbal stuff played a bigger role. Food for thought, right? Now, when we talk about what makes us human, it's not just about walking upright and having big brains. It's about culture, that whole messy, beautiful tapestry of tools, art, beliefs, traditions, all the stuff that shapes our lives and gives them meaning. And our ancestors, they were already weaving that tapestry even way back in the Stone Age. We've all seen those incredible cave paintings in Europe, right? Animals, hunting scenes, even abstract symbols, like what were they trying to say? The book focuses on the famous Lascaux cave paintings in France, over 17,000 years old. But get this, some researchers think those might not even be the oldest examples of art. We're talking scratched ochre pigments, maybe even older. And then there's this object called the Makapansgat pebble, found in South Africa.
It's a natural rock that kind of looks like a face, and it's thought to have been collected by an early hominin over 3 million years ago. Was it art? Who knows? But it suggests our ancestors were already engaging in symbolic thought, finding meaning in the world around them. Pretty cool, huh? So we've got fossils, we've got tools, we've got art, and we've got this incredible story unfolding the story of human evolution. And to understand that story, we need to talk about primates. Because guess what? We're not alone on this branch of the evolutionary tree. We've got chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, all these fascinating cousins who share a common ancestor with us. And that's where Charles Darwin comes in. His theory of evolution revolutionized our understanding of how life changes over time. And what's amazing is that modern genetics has provided even more evidence to support his ideas. We can literally trace our ancestry through our genes and see how we're connected to all other life on Earth. But defining a species can be a bit tricky, It's not always black and white. There are different ways to define a species, like whether they can interbreed or how similar their DNA is.
And even within a species, you can have a lot of variation. The book uses tigers as an example. You've got the Siberian tiger up north, all thick and furry to handle the cold, and the Sumatran tiger down south with shorter fur because it's warmer there. They're both tigers, but they look and behave differently because of their environment. Adaptation is key, right? And when it comes to primates, well, we've got a whole bunch of adaptations that make us unique. Forward-facing eyes for depth perception. Got to have that when you're swinging through trees. Grasping hands and feet. Perfect for clinging to branches. And of course, those big old brains. All signs point to our ancestors spending a lot of time in trees, and the fossil record supports this. Early primate fossils are found in areas that were once connected by ancient land masses, suggesting that our primate ancestors were already spread out before the continents drifted apart. It's amazing to think how geography and evolution are intertwined. Kind of like how my coffee table always seems to attract clutter. But here's the thing about evolution. It's not a straight line. It's more like a branching bush with lots of twists and turns. And the story of human evolution is no different. It's a long and complex journey, and scientists are still piecing together all the details. But one thing's for sure. It all started in Africa. Our early hominin ancestors, the group that includes us and our extinct relatives, first evolved in Africa millions of years ago. And from there, they spread out across the globe, adapting to new environments and evolving into the diverse range of humans we see today. It's like an epic adventure with each generation taking a step further, exploring new lands and facing new challenges. Makes you wonder what our ancestors would think of our world today, right? Selfie sticks, smartphones, reality TV? Maybe they'd be better off back in the trees. Now, the book doesn't shy away from the complexities of human origins. It talks about different theories, like the multi-regional continuity model, which suggests that modern humans evolved from archaic populations all over the world. But the more widely accepted theory, and the one supported by most evidence, is the recent African origin model. This model proposes that modern humans, Homo sapiens, evolved in Africa around 200,000 years ago. And then, somewhere between 50,000 and 80,000 years ago, started migrating out of Africa, eventually replacing or interbreeding with other hominin populations they encountered. And that migration, well, it wasn't a one-time event. It was a complex process with multiple waves of migration, different routes taken, and all sorts of interactions with other hominin groups. Some folks followed the coastlines while others ventured inland. They crossed continents, navigated vast oceans, and eventually settled in every corner of the globe. Talk about wanderlust, right? But it also speaks to our adaptability, our curiosity, our drive to explore the unknown. Makes me think of that time I tried to bake a cake without a recipe. It was a disaster. But hey, at least I tried. And along the way, our ancestors faced some pretty harsh conditions, especially during the last ice age. Ice sheets covered huge parts of the planet, temperatures plummeted, and sea levels dropped, exposing land bridges that connected continents. I mean, can you imagine trekking across a frozen wasteland with nothing but a few furs and some stone tools? Makes my winter commute seem like a walk in the park. But they did it. And not only did they survive, they thrived. They developed new technologies, honed their hunting skills, and even created art. They were tough, resourceful, and incredibly resilient. And then, around 10,000 years ago, something incredible happened. As the Ice Age ended, the climate warmed, and the glaciers retreated. Humans began to transition from a nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle to a more settled agricultural way of life. This marked the beginning of the Neolithic Revolution, and it would forever change the course of human history. But that, my friends, is a story for another time. Join me in part 2, where we'll dig into the dawn of agriculture and the rise of civilization. Until then, keep exploring. All right, so last time we left off with our ancestors, like right at the cusp of a major change, that shift from hunting and gathering to farming. Now, I always kind of thought of this as like some sudden aha moment, right? Like someone tripped over a wheat plant and was like, wait a minute, I can grow this stuff. But this book makes it clear that it was way more gradual than that. Our ancestors were already pretty savvy about plants and animals, and they've been managing the land, encouraging the growth of certain plants, and attracting animals for, well, probably as long as they've been around. So this shift to agriculture was more like a series of experiments, innovations, and I'm sure a few epic fails along the way. It's kind of like how I approach cooking. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it's questionable. And what's really wild is that this transition to farming happened independently in different parts of the world, almost like at the same time. We're talking about the Americas, Asia, Africa, Europe, all these different cultures figuring out how to grow crops and raise animals that suited their local environments and needs. It's like this global wave of agricultural innovation. And it's a testament to human ingenuity, don't you think? The book goes into detail about these different agricultural centers. In the Americas, you've got folks in Mesoamerica cultivating corn, beans, and squash. Down in South America, they're domesticating potatoes, quinoa, and get this, llamas. Over in Asia, rice is becoming a staple crop in China and Southeast Asia. And in the Fertile Crescent, that region in the Middle East, wheat, barley, and sheep are becoming essential to the local economy. It's mind-blowing to think about the sheer diversity of crops and animals that were domesticated during this period. And each region developed its own unique agricultural practices, tools, and technologies. It wasn't just about planting seeds, it was about shaping the landscape, controlling water resources, and working with nature to ensure successful harvest. Makes my little herb garden seem pretty pathetic, right? But here's the thing that really surprised me. Domesticating animals wasn't just about having a ready source of meat. It was about so much more. Animals became integrated into human societies in all sorts of ways. They provided milk, wool, eggs, and let's not forget manure, which, as any gardener knows, is like black gold. They pulled plows and carts, helping to till the land and transport goods. And of course, they became companions and pets, adding a whole new dimension to human lives. It's fascinating to see how this relationship between humans and animals evolved during this period. It wasn't just about exploitation, it was about interdependence and mutual benefit. And that relationship continues to shape our world today, whether we're talking about the food we eat, the clothes we wear, or the furry friends who share our homes. Though I'm pretty sure my cat sees me as more of a servant than a partner. Now, with agriculture came a surplus of food, and that had some pretty major consequences for human societies. People no longer had to spend all their time hunting and gathering. They could specialize in other tasks like crafting, trading, and, governing. And this specialization led to the rise of villages, towns, and eventually cities. These centers of population became hubs of economic and cultural activity, attracting people from all walks of life and allowing for even greater specialization and innovation. It's kind of like how a good coffee shop attracts a mix of, freelancers, students, and neighborhood regulars. Everyone's got their own thing going on, but there's this shared energy and sense of community. But, as the book points out, cities weren't all sunshine and roses. They brought new challenges like disease, overcrowding, and surprise, surprise, social inequality. It was a trade-off, and it's something we're still grappling with today. But here's what I find fascinating. The rise of cities wasn't just about economics. It was also about culture and spirituality. People were drawn to cities for religious reasons, for educational opportunities, and for the sheer excitement of urban life. Cities became centers of knowledge, art, and innovation, attracting people from all walks of life. Kind of like how I'm drawn to bookstores, even though I know I have enough books to last a lifetime. One of the most striking examples of this early urban life is the ancient city of Çatalhöyük in Turkey. This incredible site dating back to 7500 BCE was a bustling metropolis with a complex social structure and a rich cultural life. Imagine this: closely packed houses decorated with elaborate murals and sculptures, and the dead buried beneath the floors. Talk about cozy, right? But it also suggests a deep connection to ancestors and a sense of continuity between life and death. The people of Çatalhöyük were skilled craftspeople, producing pottery, textiles, and obsidian tools, and they had a deep connection to the natural world, evident in their art and their religious practices. It's a fascinating glimpse into the early days of urban life, and shows how cities were much more than just economic centers. They were vibrant cultural and spiritual hubs. Kind of like how a good farmer's market is more than just a place to buy produce. It's a social event, a community gathering, a celebration of local culture. But as cities grew, they needed ways to, keep things running smoothly. This led to the development of governments, laws, and, yep, you guessed it, social hierarchies. Not everyone could be in charge, right? The book talks about different types of early states. You've got city-states, where a single city controlled the surrounding territory, and territorial states, where a larger region was ruled by a central authority. And each state developed its own unique political system, from the complex bureaucracy of ancient Mesopotamia to the divine kingship of ancient Egypt. It's amazing to see how human societies were experimenting with different forms of government, trying to find the best ways to rule and maintain order. Kind of like how I'm constantly rearranging my furniture, trying to find the perfect layout. Of course, power can be a tricky thing, and the book doesn't shy away from the darker side of these early states. It talks about warfare, slavery, and social inequality, all those things that make us cringe and wonder, what were they thinking? But it's a reminder that the human story isn't always a happy one. But amidst all this complexity, There were also moments of great beauty and creativity. The book highlights the incredible art and architecture of these early civilizations, from the pyramids of Egypt to the ziggurats of Mesopotamia. These monumental structures weren't just feats of engineering, they were expressions of human ingenuity, spirituality, and a desire to leave a lasting legacy. Kind of like how I'm always trying to perfect my sourdough bread recipe. It's not just about the bread, it's about creating something beautiful and lasting. And alongside these grand structures, there were countless smaller objects that reflected the skill and artistry of these early craftspeople. Exquisite jewelry, intricate pottery, beautifully woven textiles, and tools crafted with incredible precision is all there in the book, showcasing the creativity and craftsmanship of our ancestors. It's a reminder that even in the midst of hardship and conflict, humans have always had a knack for creating beauty and finding meaning in the everyday. Now, the rise of cities and states also led to the expansion of trade networks. People were no longer just trading with their neighbors. They were connecting with people from distant lands, exchanging goods, ideas, and technologies. Think of it like the ancient version of the internet, right? Except instead of cat videos, they were trading silk, spices, and precious metals. The book describes how trade routes crisscrossed continents, linking the Mediterranean world with the Middle East, India, and even China. And along with goods like silk, spices, and precious metals, new ideas about religion, art, and technology flowed along these routes. It's fascinating to see how interconnected the ancient world already was, and how these exchanges shaped the cultural landscape. It kind of makes you wonder about the ripple effects of our own actions, doesn't it? Like, will that silly meme I shared online someday end up influencing a future civilization? But, as with most things, trade wasn't always peaceful. The book talks about how competition for resources and control of those lucrative trade routes often led to conflict and warfare. It's a reminder that human history is a tangled web of cooperation and conflict, of progress and setbacks. And unfortunately, that's something that hasn't changed much over the centuries. But amidst all this, there was also a growing awareness of shared humanity. People were beginning to see themselves as part of larger communities, connected by common beliefs, values, and cultural practices. And this led to the development of new forms of social organization, like empires, that brought together diverse peoples under a single ruler. It also led to the spread of new religions like Buddhism and Christianity that transcended cultural boundaries and offered a message of universal love and compassion. It's a reminder that even in a world often marked by conflict and division, humans have always had a capacity for empathy, understanding, and a desire for unity. Now, as human societies became more complex, they also developed more elaborate ways of thinking about the world around them, leading to the rise of philosophy, science, and mathematics. The book highlights the incredible intellectual achievements of these early civilizations. From the philosophical insights of the ancient Greeks, think Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, all those big thinkers, to the mathematical discoveries of the ancient Babylonians, who were doing some pretty advanced math, like developing the concept of zero. These advancements in knowledge and understanding help to shape our understanding of the universe, our place in it, and the very nature of reality itself. It's pretty humbling to think about how these ancient cultures were laying the groundwork for modern science and philosophy. It kind of makes you realize that we're all part of this long chain of knowledge and inquiry, doesn't it? But knowledge can be a double-edged sword, and the book acknowledges that these early civilizations also developed weapons and technologies of war that would cause immense suffering and destruction. It's a reminder that human ingenuity can be used for both good and evil, and that's a theme that runs throughout history, unfortunately. And as human societies became more powerful, they also began to have a greater impact on the environment. The book talks about how deforestation, overgrazing, and pollution, yep, even back then, began to take a toll on the natural world. It's a reminder that our relationship with the environment is complex and delicate, and that our actions can have unintended consequences. Kind of like how I'm always trying to compost more, but then I forget about it and end up with a smelly mess in my kitchen. But there were also examples of early civilizations that recognized the importance of sustainability and conservation. The book highlights the sophisticated water management systems of the ancient Egyptians and the Inca and the sustainable agricultural practices of some indigenous cultures. It's a reminder that humans have the capacity to live in harmony with nature and that we can learn a lot from the wisdom of our ancestors. Now, as we've journeyed through this incredible book, we've seen how human societies have evolved over time, facing challenges, overcoming obstacles, and creating remarkable things. But one thing that has remained constant throughout this journey is our capacity for storytelling. From the earliest cave paintings to the epic poems of ancient civilizations, humans have always had a need to tell stories, to share our experiences, and to make sense of the world around us. And the book itself is a testament to this enduring human impulse. It's a story about our origins, our evolution, and our place in the grand scheme of things. It's a story that continues to unfold, and it's a story that we're all part of. But as we reach the end of this deep dive, I'm left with a sense of wonder and a profound appreciation for the incredible journey that has brought us to where we are today. And I'm also filled with a sense of responsibility, a recognition that we're not just inheritors of this incredible legacy, we're also its custodians. It's up to us to learn from the past, to build a better future, and to ensure that the human story continues to be one of progress, innovation, and compassion. So as you go about your day, I encourage you to take a moment to reflect on the long and winding path that has led us to this moment. Remember our ancestors, honor their struggles, and celebrate their achievements. And let's all strive to create a world where future generations can look back on our time with pride and gratitude. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, from those first single-celled organisms to the rise of cities and empires and all that. It's a pretty wild ride, right? But one thing that's always kind of intrigued me is that human urge to understand the bigger picture, where do we fit in, not just here on Earth, but, in the whole universe. And that's where things get really philosophical. This book, Evolution, the Human Story, it doesn't shy away from those big questions. It talks about how ancient cultures, they developed their own explanations for the cosmos, for life and death, for the forces of nature that they just couldn't explain. And often these explanations, they came in the form of myths and stories passed down through generations, trying to make sense of the mysteries of existence. It's like that innate human desire to find meaning, even in the face of the unknown. And what's fascinating is how diverse these myths are, right? Each culture had its own unique perspective reflected in their stories and rituals and art and all that. You've got creation myths, flood myths, hero myths, trickster myths. It's like this universal human need to explain where we came from, why we're here, and what happens after we die. Even if the answers are, a little out there sometimes. For example, there's this ancient Egyptian myth where the sky goddess Nut swallows the sun god Ra every evening and gives birth to him again each morning. I mean, it's a pretty wild way to explain the cycle of day and night, but there's something poetic about it too, don't you think? But even in these seemingly outlandish stories, there's often a deeper meaning, symbolic representation of the natural world and our place. And it's like they're trying to find patterns and make connections in this, this chaotic and often unpredictable world that we live in. And as societies became more complex, well, so did their explanations of the universe. We see the rise of organized religion with its, elaborate rituals or priesthoods and temples dedicated to specific deities. And alongside religion, you've got a development of philosophy and science and mathematics, all these different ways of trying to understand the world and our place in it. Mm-hmm. And what's really cool is how these different ways of knowing, they interacted and influenced each other. You've got philosophers debating the nature of reality, astronomers mapping the stars, and mathematicians developing new systems of measurement. It's like this explosion of intellectual curiosity pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. And, it's a process that continues to this day. And some of those early discoveries, I mean, they were truly groundbreaking. Like the ancient Greeks, they figured out that the Earth is a sphere, not flat. And they even calculated the circumference with pretty impressive accuracy, considering they didn't have satellites or GPS back then. And then you have the ancient Babylonians developing the concept of zero. Like that's a revolutionary idea that changed the course of mathematics. It's mind-boggling to think about how those ancient cultures laid the foundation for so much of what we know today. But it wasn't always smooth sailing. There were setbacks and conflicts and times when intellectual inquiry was like stifled. The book talks about how dogmatism and superstition sometimes held back scientific progress. And of course, there was the destruction of the Library of Alexandria, which housed like countless scrolls of ancient wisdom. It was a tragic loss for humanity. It's a reminder that progress isn't linear, right? It's often a bumpy road, with detours and wrong turns and all that. But even in those dark times, the human thirst for knowledge and understanding, it never like truly died out. And in the past few centuries, I mean, we've seen an explosion of scientific and technological advancements unlike anything that like came before. We've unlocked the secrets of the atom, mapped the human genome, and sent probes to distant planets. It's like we're standing on the shoulders of giants, building on the knowledge and discoveries of countless generations. But the more we learn about the universe, well, the more we realize just how much we don't know. There are still so many mysteries out there, puzzles that continue to like baffle even the brightest minds. And maybe that's part of the beauty of it all. The universe is this vast and awe-inspiring place, and there's always something new to discover. So what does it all mean? What's the point of this incredible journey? From those first single-celled organisms to the complex societies that we live in today. Honestly, I don't think there's one like easy answer. Maybe the meaning is in the journey itself, and the constant striving to understand ourselves and our place in the universe. Or maybe it's just about being present, appreciating the beauty and wonder of existence and living our lives to the fullest, knowing that we're like part of something much bigger than ourselves. I guess that's for each of us to decide, right? But whatever your answer, I encourage you to keep asking questions, to keep exploring, and to never lose that like childlike sense of wonder, because in the end, that's where the real magic lies. And with that, we come to the end of our deep dive into evolution, the human story. I hope you enjoyed the journey as much as I did. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing